All right, welcome back. We are COMP125, that's client-side scripting in the summer 2020 semester at Centennial, client-side web development. And it's week 5, part 2 of our broadcast. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the DOM, or manipulating the DOM with code, as well as assignment 2, which is your first assignment with me. Okay, so I'm going to start with assignment 2. I'm going to see if I can annotate this video because this video is going to include some important information about assignment 2 and about other things. All right. I'm going to introduce some new things to you guys that are tools, more tools, tools. We talked about this. So here's assignment 2. It's a mini portfolio site that you're going to be doing by next week. That's right, next week I said. Friday, July 3rd at 2020 at midnight. Why next week? We've got no time, and I got lots of stuff for you guys to do, and not enough time for us to do everything. And I need you guys to hop on this thing and start doing a little bit of coding with JavaScript like you've never done before. So let's get going on this. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a web application that includes 3 pages. 1, 2, 3. The first page is going to be all about you, right? A bio page, really. Well, that's going to have a personal logo, which is like, you're going to make a little logo for yourself. And we're going to talk about how to do that today. A recent image of you. No avatars. I'm not going to include, you're not going to allow it to include your favorite anime character or superstar or movie star or anything. It's got to be a picture of you, right? Because I need to know that it's your site. It's going to describe your personal mission statement. Who are you? What do you want to do? Why are you here? That kind of stuff. It's maybe a one-liner. Mission statement could be like, I want to be an awesome software engineer. Could be one of those, right? So that is your first page. You can dolly this page up the way you like. You can make it so that it's really nice. I would ask you not to make it plain. If the plainer that page looks, the worse your mark is going to be for that page. So I'm not asking you to be a professional web designer at all, but please don't make it ugly, okay? And please don't skew your image. Don't make it so that the image is like way skewed in some weird way so that it barely fits on the page, or it exactly fits in a square, but it's not a square image. It's actually a a rectangular image or something like that. So that's page number 1. Second page is going to be a contact page, right? Which is going to be hey, how do you contact me, right? And it's going to have a simple contact form. I'm going to talk about that. And the third page is going to be your favorite projects, things that you're working on, things that you've worked on. It could be web related, otherwise. It could be nothing to do with school, something that you've worked on, maybe a personal project or hobby that you're working on. But it's got to be about you, okay? It can't be made up. It can't be something that's not true. So it's something about you, okay? So those are the 3 pages that I want you to create. So part of it is going to be some content that I'm going to pay you for, if you think about this, because we're going to have some content, and I want you to manipulate. Pay. When I say pay with marks. And we have to have this content, and I'm going to talk about how to get this content on the page, which is going to be a little bit non-conventional because it is a JavaScript course, by the way, right? So let's talk about this. So your bio page or about me page, this will be your landing page. So the first page that the people go to is going to be this page. It's going to be the index.html page. It's going to include a personal logo. Okay, what the heck is that? It means some kind of symbol or trademark that's about you. It cannot be somebody else's personal symbol or trademark, like, for example, an Apple logo that's turned upside down and colored red. Okay, that is not acceptable. It's got to be something that you create, and it can be created very simply. You can take your favorite program. I'm going to use this old program, Fireworks. You can use any program you want to create this thing. But let's suppose I want to make a very silly looking logo. I can literally just create it. Let's make my logo 200 by 200 pixels, right? Again, use any program you want to do this, right? You don't have to be an artist. And all of you are going to be technical in doing this, right? Because most of you are not artists. And let's suppose I want to take some kind of polygon, right? And I want to make a weird symbol. I can literally do something like looks like this, right? And color it a different color. Like, for example, I don't know, blue, right? There we go. A blue but cut off logo. And I want to put in my initial in here like this, T, right? And you know what? My initial T for my logo I mean, you can go crazy here, and you can be a little bit creative, more creative than I'm being right now. And I'm just going to make this like something like 40. Let's make it even bigger. Let's make it like 80. There we go. And let's suppose I want to make this so that it kind of does this. This is my logo. Yay. It kind of looks weird. You know what? Maybe we'll even make it bigger, right? Because I'm just a crazy guy. I'll make it something like, I don't know, 200. Oop. I said 200, all right? Perfect. And then I want to put this T in here so that it looks like something that's actually good, but it's not, okay? And, you know, it looks better than nothing, right? It has some kind of interesting stuff, and maybe I want to layer it with something else, like another silly thing, like an ellipse. And let's make a different color. And this is how silly it can be, guys. And I'm being facetious here when I'm doing this, but please bear with me. Blue and red, I think. Maybe that would be good. Okay, so I'm going to do one of these, and there's the color. And here we go. This is going to be my logo. And going to put it like this, but I'm going to make it shorter. I don't know. Maybe not. I don't think it looks good. No. So let's just modify the canvas and change the canvas size by chopping off some area over here by, I don't know, make it something like 150. Maybe more. Modify canvas size and bring that down to, I don't know, 120. Okay, that's not bad. So kind of square-ish, and maybe the canvas size at the top, I'll squeeze that down too to make the canvas size from the top only maybe something like 150. Okay, cool. That's looking kind of what I want to do. I'm going to highlight this whole thing and move it up just so that it's a little bit centered. No, maybe that's good. Something like that's like this. And so I want to start at the corner. I think I got an idea. And I'll cut it right here so that maybe we'll do it again. So modify canvas. I'm just doing this randomly, by the way. There's no planning involved whatsoever in my design. All right, and we'll make it so that it's 120. So 120 by 120. Okay, that kind of is interesting. All right, maybe. Not really. Okay. And you know what? This is going to be my logo. It's going to be T with a weird part of a hexagon-ish thing. Okay, and then what you can do with a lot of programs is you can go here and you can trim the canvas so that anything else outside of this screen, right, as an example, is ignored. And the way to do that, of course, is to cut. I'm going to just do a cut. So we're going to do some kind of thing like this. There we go. Where I'm going to cut the canvas. So that's going to be crop. And what I'll do is I'll flatten everything too. I'll flatten all the layers. Let's just flatten my selection so it's one thing. And that's going to help me do the cut. Okay, and then let's do the cut again. And yeah, yay, that's my symbol. And that literally is, there's nothing else outside of here, just this. And this is my symbol. So it's like white, but mostly like this. And maybe I want to do something that's more interesting than this in the future. But you see I have a bit of, I don't know what the heck that is, but it looks like some transparency too. Yay. Okay, so that is my logo. And you know what? I'm going to use this today in my design. File, save as. And again, I recommend a PNG image. I'm going to go to my desktop. Here's my desktop. And I'm going to go into that lesson 5 thing that we had. And under our folders, I'm going to introduce a new assets folder. And inside assets, I'm going to put an images folder. And inside my images, I'm going to call this thing logo. Because, you know, I'm pretty crazy. All right, so images, logo, and save. There we go. Really exciting image. Woohoo! Not. Okay, so personal logo done. A recent image of you and a short paragraph that outlines your personal mission. So recent image, guys. That means you could take a picture with your smartphone. You can get someone else to take a picture of you if you have something like that. I don't want an image of you as a baby or of you as a aged adult with some kind of weird software, although that might be quite more interesting than doing it like this. And a short paragraph that outlines your personal mission. If only a few sentences, not so many. All of the text on your page should come from, and this is the JavaScript part, string variables. That's why it's a little bit unconventional, because normally we don't do that. Normally we put it inside the page as HTML. Your page may not have HTML string variables or strings inside there, so you're not going to have actual text from your HTML page. In fact, everything, all the text, including your H1 tags, everything that we can see is all going to be strings, except for your navbar. Okay, so navbar, if you're using Bootstrap, it's not going to be. I don't care about that one, but for everything else that's inside your main page, it's got to be through string variables. We'll talk about that. All right. B, a contact page. So this is page number 2. Include a short form that asks the user for their contact information, right? And that means that name, contact number, short message, whatever. And when the user clicks on the submit button, okay, submit button, the form will take them back to the bio page, which is your index.html. The form does not have to work for this assignment, which means no one's going to send you a real message. It's just going to be a mock form right now. Okay, that's all it's going to do. It's just going to take you back to the main page. A projects page. So going on now. Projects page, which you'll include details, text, and images of 3 of your favorite projects. The text for each project will come from string variables. Okay, so that's not going to come again from you putting it in HTML in your app.js. Both, part A and part C are string variables. So I'm going to say that again. If you embed this in your HTML, you will get 0 for these pages. Okay, you cannot use HTML for this whatsoever. You can frame HTML and target your HTML. A nav bar and a nav panel will allow the user to navigate from page to page. Nav bar or nav panel. So if you don't like the nav bar and you want to do something else, you can certainly do that. This bar or panel may be positioned on your page as you desire. So for some people, they've created a banner. Other people have created something else, some other way of navigating. And people have been very creative in this way. You don't have to be creative. You can literally leave a bar. Here's what I don't want you to do. I don't want you to make the bar boring. All right. So if you give me if you take your Bootstrap bar and you make a black bar on top of your page, yeah, you could do that, but it would be boring unless your colors of your page make sense with your nav bar. All right. So if your your page is like black and white kind of theme, and you have a very black and white kind of look and feel to it, you have to think about this. All right. So you're going to get marked on not just the functionality, but the UI presentation. So it's half marks for this. Half. Notice there's 4 marks for UI and 4 marks for functionality. So the beauty of your pages, the friendliness, call it what you like, it's built in to these marks. All right. So just letting you know. Next, part 2. Your site will be organized in the following structure: a contents folder. All right. That will contain your site CSS files. We've done this already for you. Scripts folder that will contain all your JavaScript files if you have more than one. An assets folder, which I just created. This folder will contain your site's images and media files. So anything like audio or anything else like that is going to be in there. You will include the Bootstrap CSS framework. Someone asked me last day, can I use some other framework? No, you must use Bootstrap because I'm teaching you how to use this thing. And you must use the font icon font library, not the Bootstrap font glyph library in your structure. Why? Because this helps you use some other framework. You're going to attach JavaScript files probably like you've never done before. And I want you to learn how to do this kind of stuff because it's very similar across different kinds of frameworks. That's the reason why. Okay. These are all site structure marks that you're getting. So 10 marks for site structure. These marks up here are 28 marks for functionality and user interface. That's where this comes from. Okay, cool. Next, internal documentation. Ensure you include a comment header for CSS and JavaScript files that include the file name, author's name, website name, file description. So this is like your CSS and JavaScript files only, not your HTML files. Ensure you include section headers for all your HTML structure, CSS style sections, and JavaScript sections, which means that if you're going to, like I've started with your HTML using HTML comments, right? Saying, for example, here's my CSS, here is my main page, here is my comments. All right. Ensure all your code uses contextual variable names. So please do not include things like if you're I don't know, you're something that you're writing for your code. For example, let's say I have my mission statement. Don't call it miss, M-I-S. Make it mission statement, your variable name, something like that. Make it so it's contextual. We have a lot of room. JavaScript can hold very large variable names, and I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with making using i's, x's, or y's unless you're having an index or some kind of coordinate system, x's and y's, right? Which you don't have, right, for your variable names, unless you're doing some kind of for loop or whatever. Ensure you include inline comments to describe your UI design and functionality. And this is only if required. If it's not required, please don't over-comment. I'm not expecting you to comment the crap out of your documents. Over-commenting is as bad as under-commenting, all right? So, and, I've asked you for contextual variable names. I'm not sure if I believe that the code comments itself necessarily, but a combination of some short comments in your code in different places, as well as contextual variable names, might be enough to kind of document everything you need for what you're doing. Okay. You must share your files on GitHub to demonstrate version control best practices. I told you this was coming, right? And push your site to a cloud host. Haven't shown you how to do that, but we'll go over that today, right? And I'm going to show you one cloud host, GitHub. You already know how to use GitHub. We're going to talk about GitHub Pages, and which is where I recommend it. No, you cannot use your site from school. It's not allowed. You have to use a real life page that I can get to from anywhere, and so can everyone else, all right? Your repository must include commits that demonstrate the project being updated at different stages of development, which means if you make one commit, that's not good enough. You'll lose 2 marks. Okay, if you just push your site one time, to GitHub. And you must deploy your site to a cloud server, and cloud server could be Microsoft Azure, if you want to, Amazon Web Services. You can make one of those. By the way, all these are available for free. There's free options for students and for people who just want to make a very simple site. It could be your Google Cloud Platform, any one of these cloud servers that you want to use, or GitHub Pages, which I highly recommend. It's completely free. There's nothing for you to do. I will show you how to use GitHub Pages today. The other ones, that's for you to research if you're interested. All right, and this part is the thing that's going to cause consternation for sure, which is I want you to make a short video presentation on YouTube or another streaming provider, and you must include a very short PowerPoint, 1 slide, that includes basically a current image of you, no avatars allowed. You must include your full name, student ID, course code, and course name, and your assignment information, all right? You will demonstrate your site's functionality during the video. So what you're going to do is, I don't want you to show your face necessarily on the video. It's not required, although you may, if you feel like that is something you want to do, right? Other than your title slide. Your title slide has to have your face on it or whatever. But I want you to demonstrate functionality of your website. And basically what you're going to do is go through each page of your website and say, so here's my bio page. You can see that it works. I've got all my stuff here. It literally would take like minutes to do this. Not very long at all, right? Here is my contact page. You can see that when I click this submit button, it takes me back to the bio page. Here is my projects page. I've got 3 little projects here that I'm outlining, some images and text that all come from JavaScript. And then you're going to describe your code a little bit. You're going to go through your JavaScript file, your app.js, and you're going to go, see here, I've got this variable right here, this string variable. This is the variable that connects to my HTML, and this is how it pushes this into the HTML side. We're going to talk about how to do that. Sound for your video must be an appropriate level so I can hear you. If I can't hear your video, you're going to lose 2 marks. In fact, your video is going to be pretty bad in general. And I must be able to see your video. If I can't see details of the code that you're showing me or your PowerPoint, like it's really, I don't know, terribly made. I'm not asking you to be videographers. I just want you to make it so that it is decent. I'm going to show you how to do it. There might be some tools I'm going to talk about today on what to do and how to make a short video, right? And then your short video could run no more than 5 minutes. So if your video is more than 5 minutes, you're going to lose 2 marks, okay? So please don't make your video very long. Everything has to be in 5 minutes, which means recording could be 10 minutes, and you might cut some stuff, or you might try and make your video a couple of times, and it's got to be on YouTube or another streaming provider. I don't need the link to your slide deck because your slide deck has 1 slide. I don't need that. But I do need a link to your video, and it has to be working. If it's not working, you'll lose 10 marks off the top, right, from this thing. And these are the breakdown of all the marks. So you've got, again, 14 marks for user interface design, how it looks, your logo, all that kind of stuff, and the feel of your site. Functionality, 14 marks. Not a lot of marks here for functionality, boys and girls. And a site structure of 10 marks. So this site structure is really important because we're going to build on this site structure from one assignment to the next. We're going to do that, okay? And internal documentation is worth 4 marks, version control 4 marks, cloud deployment 4 marks, and video presentation 10 marks. Hell, your video presentation is almost as important as your functionality. So if you don't get this right, you're going to lose 10 marks off the top, right? That's pretty good. This whole thing is worth 10%, and it's due next week by Friday. So it's a big one, but I need you guys to get onto it, and so you can be more comfortable with the tools and with JavaScript and with everything else we've talked about. It'll push you guys, and I feel that assignments do that. It makes you learn a lot when you do something like this, especially in a tight time frame. Okay, so 3 favorite projects. I'm going to go do that right now. So first of all, before I look to the right here, there's some questions. I'm going to hit the questions, but can you also, anyone else have any questions, please put up their hand. That would be good. Can you recommend some tools? I'm going to go up to the chat line here for a second. Here's some questions that I got. And I think I'll stick to MS Paint. Sure, you can do that. Can you recommend some tools for making the logo? Yes, I can recommend some tools. And there's some free tools that maybe we've talked about before, but I'll go there now. One of the free tools I highly recommend is a tool called Krita. All right, so it's a little easier to use than GIMP, I find. It's a free download. There's nothing for you to pay or anything else to use this tool. And there are a ton of tutorials on how to use Krita very nicely. So it's a pretty good tool. It's kind of a mix. It's kind of like Photoshop. I don't want to recommend Inkscape, although Inkscape probably is a closer tool to make your logo. But I think if you use something like Krita for free, it's got a lot of potential, lots of things that you can do for absolutely for free. And I think this is a good tool. So Krita, I'm going to put this inside of our links here for this week's links. So I'm going to say new link, create a link, and I'm going to say this is Krita. So free download, and we'll say optional. All right, so if you want to use it, you can totally do that. Highly recommend. An easy win for you guys if you know how to use Krita. If you're going to be a technical artist, and if you don't have any money and you can't afford Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, then Krita is for you. All right. The next one I want to definitely recommend, if you have money or if you have access to it, is Adobe Illustrator. Now, not Adobe Photoshop, and I'll talk about the reason why. Again, Inkscape might be a second for this one. Adobe Illustrator, and I'm just going to go to Illustrator here, is the de facto standard for creating things like logos, line art, and a bunch of other stuff like that. So I highly recommend this. There is quite a learning curve with Adobe Illustrator, and for most of you, it's not going to be something you're going to do very much. So from a time investment perspective, I'm not sure it's the best use of your time to learn how to use Adobe Illustrator, unless you really love art and you want to be, maybe you're going to do some more design on the design side for websites. Then you know what? There's nothing that's going to hurt you to learn Adobe Illustrator. Now, I'm an Adobe subscriber. I subscribe to Adobe Creative Cloud, so I get Illustrator updated on a regular basis. And you can do so as a student for something like $30 US a month. Get the entire suite if you're interested. And if you're going to be doing something with Illustrator and Photoshop and other tools that we've seen, then this is a good investment. If you're never going to do it, don't recommend, right? Because it's a big tool and it's very complex. Okay, so this is another option. A third, and again, this is not something that I would recommend as much, is Inkscape. Okay, Inkscape is similar in functionality to Illustrator, but it's a free tool. All right, so that's something that you maybe want to think about downloading. Lots of tutorials on how to use Inkscape. Is it my favorite tool in the world? Hell no. I like Krita more. But if you want to use something like Illustrator, then Inkscape is your tool of choice. Okay. Again, GIMP is far away from something that I would use off the top. Okay. I use some really older tools like Fireworks. Fireworks is also part of the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, and it's part of CS6. It's been discontinued, so that's why it's not something that I would recommend necessarily off the top. But it's a very simple program. Again, you can use any program for this, Microsoft Paint, Paint.net, whatever, to make your logo. It doesn't have to be professional. All right, next question. What if we have not worked on any projects? Yes, you may not work on any projects, but you might have a hobby. You might have something that you're interested in, learning or whatever. Talk about that. Areas of interest. You can, instead of projects, use areas of interest. I want images and text. It cannot just be some text that say, I'm interested in web design. Give me some text in there. Give me some images that show me what you're interested in. But let's say, for example, you're a YouTube streamer and you like to stream stuff on YouTube. That could be a project or something that you're working on, something that you've got going on the side. Maybe you like to make cupcakes, like to bake cupcakes, and that's one of your things. Make it. Show a picture of you baking cupcakes. You love to bake cupcakes. Whatever. It's just for content, guys. But I need to have 3 of them. 3 things that you're interested in or that you're working on. If you're working on a machine learning project on your own, or you have something else that you want to learn, that you're learning on your own, aside from what we're doing here, please do not include things like, hey, look, here's my mini portfolio site. That's my project. No. Okay, it's got to be something else. So that's your projects. Let's keep going. Anyone else have any other questions? Please put up your hand now. So you can put up your hand if you go to the participants tab. I don't want to spend too much more time on this because we've got to move on. So no more questions? Due dates. Again, I want to say it one more time. Due dates, you got to have next week. It's got to be due by Friday at midnight. I know there's other competing assignments that are happening at the same time, right? But this course is worth the same amount as any other course. So please allocate some time to getting it done. It doesn't have to take a long time. There's only 3 pages for you to get. It's not like I'm making you do 20 pages or something crazy. And the thing that scares some people is going to be the video. So how do you make the video? Again, lots of tools to make your video. One of the tools that I use right now, and I'm using it right now for streaming on YouTube, is OBS. So if you look at OBS, Open Broadcast Studio, I think it's a great tool. It's free to use. I'm going to put this on your links. So let's go to links here, and I'll put this in as a new link. OBS. And I recommend download recommended. Okay, I really highly recommend OBS. I think it's an easy tool to use. It's got easy out-of-the-box kind of integration with YouTube, Twitch, and a lot of other things that you can do. So I highly recommend using OBS. How do you use it? Tons of tutorials online, but the basic functionality is like this. Under sources, you can create several sources. One of them, and let's see if I can bring up the source that I'm using right now. I'm going to show you OBS. So here's my OBS. I know I'm getting the weird page. You can see that I'm actually streaming, right? Live on YouTube. And you can see that I've got a couple things here. I've got my video capture device. That's me. This thing, my camera. I'm also looking at my screen. You can have multiple screens here. One screen I'm not recording, but I could, if I turn it on, I can record this one or this one. So those are my screens that I can record. And you can adjust your mic levels and your video capture devices and everything else. And you can stream directly into YouTube. And it's pretty cool. So that's like OBS. I highly recommend you use something like this when you're streaming. Okay, so there's other ones too. If you want to use other professional tools, there's a ton of them out there. Search for streaming tools. I don't care about seeing your face when you're streaming. Like I said, all I care about is looking at your screen and hearing your voice. And that first page of your title page from that one page PowerPoint presentation that I'm looking at. You don't have to share the PowerPoint presentation with me, but there's got to be one single page that you open with that basically shows your picture. Who are you? Describe your, tell me your name and the course code and all that stuff as you open up. And you're going to be narrating, voicing over the entire thing. Okay, it's not going to be too crazy. Again, maximum 5 minutes. So OBS would be the other tool that you're using. ZDsoft is another easy one. Tiago recommended it. Hey, Tiago's a master at broadcasting online. So if you guys need any help, and if Tiago's got his time, I'm not sure if he's got time. I'm not going to volunteer. I'm not going to volunteer Tiago for this, but he's definitely a master compared to some of the other students I've seen. So we'll leave it at that. But he might be able to recommend some stuff. And Tiago, if you've got some tools you want to recommend on chat, you can certainly bring it up there and could put it up there. So really like Tiago's stuff. He did a video for me already, and it's really, really good. Okay, so so for you guys, what I'm looking for is, you know, something that's straightforward that you can show me your face and talk about your code. Now, don't be afraid. And some of you are already, you know, worried that it's not going to be good enough, or maybe you have noise in your environment that you're worried about. I don't care about the noise. I really don't care. It doesn't have to be a professional video. I'm not looking for, you know, lower thirds on your video. We're not going to make a video production class at the same time you're doing coding here. That's not the exercise. I want to see your face. I want to hear you talk about your code, and I want you to think about what you're talking about and how you're doing stuff. It's going to show me that you know what you're doing, and the way you're talking about it is going to help me understand that it's from you, right? So please take your time. If you don't subscribe, if you don't give me your video, I'm going to be not happy. Put it that way. I want to see you. I want to see your work. Remember, we're in a remote scenario. I believe that professors going forward are going to ask for you to make little videos like this in other courses soon. And why? Because I'm going to recommend it to everybody. Why? It's a really good tool. I think it gives you a chance to you know, integrate your knowledge and actually discuss it like in the real world. If I was giving you a chance to do an interview and you're talking about your code and you're discussing stuff, it's going to help you from an understanding perspective. I know it's not comfortable for some of you because your personality may not be comfortable talking about your code or whatever. You need to get more comfortable. All right? So this is the exercise that I'm going to give you to do next week, Friday, midnight. Any other questions before we move on? Test your gear. I love that. I love that recommendation from Tiago. Sometimes it doesn't work. You know, we talked about having a good mic. You know, I think a good mic is really important. We talked about this, and I recommended that you know, Blue Microphones mic again on Amazon. I think we talked about this already. So Blue Microphones. And I said, like, you know, Snowball is the way I would go, probably something like this. Sometimes they're not available. You can see that a lot of this, you know, isn't available in terms of like, and how much. It used to be a lot cheaper than this, a lot cheaper than $91, that's for sure. But you can see as you go, you know, kind of more expensive. A Yeti, as an example, or a Yeti Nano it's quite expensive. And if I don't see Prime when I order from Amazon, not great. So there's other things you can do. You can look at Best Buy. They also carry, you know, Blue Microphones, and anywhere else you can get them. And I told you you're going to have to get them at some point. You need a mic. You could also use your mic from, let's say, your headset. If you like to have a gaming headset, there's some really cheap ones that you can buy that also have a mic. You know, as an example, this is better than nothing, guys. And I highly recommend this one over something like using your built-in mic from your machine. Sometimes your machine, you know, is it's got an omnidirectional mic and it has very bad sound. All right, if I can't hear you, half of a successful video is sound. So please make sure that you can take care of that. So very good recommendation, Tiago. Something like you need to test your mic and your camera. If you don't have a camera, let's say if you're using a desktop, you need to get one. And you're going to need one in the future anyway. So here, if I look at webcam, there's various different ones. You can see that I bought this recently for my wife. She wanted something, and I bought it cheaply. It works great, guys. It's really tiny, and she's had no issues with it. It was a plug-and-play deal. You plug in USB, and away you go. There's definitely other options for cheaper. but I found success with using this one. Okay, so it's up to you. There's a ton of other choices out there as well, a ton. Like I'm talking everything from using your DLSR and making that into a webcam. And if you have a laptop, you already have, most of you have a webcam built in. Again, it doesn't have to be awesome, and I'm not asking you to actually do anything with it. You're not actually taking it, I'm not actually listening to you from I'm not going to watch you or anything like that. But if you wanted to record yourself for some reason, then you want to get a webcam. Totally optional, not required. I don't need you to put a little image of yourself like I am in your video. It's not required. All I need is for you to voice over your work. That's what I want you to do more than anything else. Other really important things, if you do want to record this, they come with additional costs like lighting. Lighting is always an issue. So maybe you want to think about getting a ring light. I don't know. It really depends on the type of person you are and how much you want to go crazy. If you don't have money, and most of us don't spend it. All I care about is I can hear you and I can see your screen. Those are the most important things for me for this time around, okay? So test it out, make sure it works, and before you upload your video to YouTube, you need a YouTube account. So you need to set up a YouTube account or any other streaming account. Twitch is also acceptable. Don't use Mixer because Mixer's closing down, but anything like that is pretty good. So that way I can click on the link and watch your video. I do not want you to give me a link to a 400 megabyte video that you upload to eCentennial. No. I will not look at that. I won't even download it. All right. So please don't do that. All right. And it's going to take you a ton of time to upload. It's got to be a link. Okay. Not a download. I'm not going to get you to upload an MP4 file to eCentennial. Please do not do that. That is a no-no. Okay. So that's not what I'm asking for at all. Okay. So talked about some tools. We're just going to X out of here. And now we also talked about the last part, which is where we're going to start coding, which is a couple of tools provider we talked about. One of them is Microsoft Azure. So if you go to sign up for Azure, that's Microsoft Azure. You can sign up for that for free. There is a free account that you can definitely use as a student. However, I will caution you that when you do this, sometimes it will ask you for things like credit cards and blah, blah, blah. And if you're adverse to doing that, I recommend don't do it. All right. Same thing with Amazon Web Services, AWS, right? So you could always sign up to AWS as well. There are some free web services if you want to make a website. Lots and lots of learnings involved with these cloud providers. And you can look at a ton of tutorials that can help you put up your website in no time at all. All right, so Azure, Amazon, and even Google Platform, right? So I'm going to talk about Google Platform for a second, only a second, because I find it's somewhat more difficult than the other two to use. But again, there's nothing wrong with putting up a small website in one of these cloud providers, but they're more involved. The one I'm going to show you today is called GitHub Pages. So GitHub Pages, and this is how you use it. So if you click on pages.github.com, I'm just going to copy this and put it as a link for us on our here. So we'll say GitHub Pages. There we go. Here we go. GitHub Pages. So how does GitHub Pages work? Well, if you follow the instructions, it's pretty easy. Like literally it's a 1, 2, 3 click process. Well, let's do it with the page that we already have in question. Now there's one thing we need to do to modify our page when we put it up. So far we're kind of halfway there. If I go to github.com and /Centennial College, last day we put up this resource right here, Git COMP125 M2020 Lesson 5, right? And I think I shared it with you. Week 5, Assignment 2, GitHub Pages. Oh yeah, let's make another one. New link. We'll say, we'll call this the GitHub repo from week 5. That's what this is going to be. And what I want to do is grab this link and populate it into here so you can have access to it. So you can always go to GitHub. Anything that we do in class, you can go to GitHub and look at and compare your code with my code to make sure it's working properly. All right, so I already have a repository. It's right here. And if I go to it, one thing that I can do under settings, if I click on settings, so this is your training, guys, so pay attention, please. Settings. This is actually on my website, right? And if I scroll down, it says manage access, secure, branches, webhooks, notifications, integration, all this other stuff. And what I want to do is I want to see my GitHub pages online. So if I just scroll down, notice that there is GitHub pages right here. I haven't done anything. It's like part of settings, right? And notice it says is designed to host your personal organization or project pages from a GitHub repository. Like, it's that easy. You already have GitHub. This is the easiest thing you can possibly do. And it says, hey, what is the current, GitHub Pages is currently disabled. Select the source below to enable GitHub Pages for this repository. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to say master branch. When I do that, it's going to take a second. And it says settings. The repository name is COMP125 M2020 lesson 5. It says template repositories if users generate new repositories from the same directory and files. No, I'm pretty cool about this. I don't have to do anything else, just that. If I scroll down, you can see that it gives you a link, centennialcollege.github.io/comp125 M2020 lesson 5. It's not going to work right now. And why? It's going to give you this, actually. And notice that there is no styling whatsoever. Why? Because of node modules. Because of node modules. So remember what we did last day. Last day, we enabled our page to work. Here is our little lesson. And I'm going to bring up Visual Studio Code. Yay. This is our little lesson for VS Code. Thank you for that release information. But notice that in my index.html, and I'm just going to bring this so that it's maximized. By the way, if I want to maximize the screen, I can press the Windows button and the up button. That maximizes everything. There we go. So let's take a look at this. In my index.html, I've got all this stuff, but I access what I'm doing in my Windows HTML up here in the head is I'm accessing node modules. Doo-doo, node modules. And node modules like this, guys, not good. GitHub does not like node modules. However, you can make it be okay with node modules by including an additional file that we haven't included yet, and that file is called .nojekyll. If you search for what I'm talking about, so I can display what it looks like online, if I search for .nojekyll, it's spelled exactly like this, .nojekyll, right? And if you look at the GitHub blog, it says bypassing Jekyll, and on GitHub Pages, Jekyll is kind of like their little server framework, whatever you want to call it. And if I take this page right here, .nojekyll, it has to be spelled exactly like this, and it has to be empty. Copy. I'm going to go back to just the name I'm copying. I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to add a brand new file. It has to be in the root, so it can't be buried inside of another folder or anything. Here's my root, and I'm making a new file called nojekyll. And if I press enter, that's it. It's a nojekyll file. It literally doesn't do anything. There's nothing inside of it. But now that I have this in there, and I've also included, one thing I also included was, notice my logo. I've included that, but I really want to upload from nojekyll so that way I can make my pages work. I have a new commit possibility here, right? So I'm going to go to where it says changes, and I'm going to click this little plus button, which is stage all changes. You can also do it with code. Actually, I've done it this way before. Let's use code instead. So my command line. So in my command line, control backtick will bring it up. And I can just say git add dot. Here's the command for it. If I did this, I can go here. Now you see that it's actually staged. And it says stage changes. It would be the same thing as if I pressed the plus button up here. Okay? Watch over here on, I'm just clicking on this GitHub link here. Watch over here what happens when I add the next part. Git commit -m, and I'll say something like added .nojekyll. Jekyll file, right? No Jekyll, all right? If it's spelt wrong, bad things will happen, okay? So, and if I press enter and it does the commit, this thing will disappear. Yay! So this commit is done locally, and now I need to push it to GitHub. So I'm going to go git push origin master. So what this says is, hey, push my changes up into GitHub through the origin remote, that connection between my Git local repository and my GitHub repository, into the master branch, which is what I need to do so that it can show me my page in all of its glory. So I'm pushing. Again, if you did this and if you haven't configured GitHub or Git locally with git -- global, and you have to put in your name and email, if you've never done this before, this is going to force you to do it for the first time. All right, so it's going to push it up. It's pushed. And if you notice, if I go back to my repository, let's go to my repository page itself, which is here. Okay, so here's my repository. You can see now that I have pushed my page. You can see that I've got a .no Jekyll file right here. I really like, by the way they've cleaned up GitHub lately. They've really modified it. They continue to add to it, and there's some really good stuff happening. All right, and notice that there is a little check mark right here. This little check mark tells me that, if I hover over it, it tells me that I have actually built my pages on GitHub successfully, and I've pushed the latest build up online. That's what it means. And you can also check this. If I go to under my code, I can also look at my commits. Here's my commits, 6 commits. If I click here on my commits, it also will bring me to a series of commits, and it can show me every time I have a check mark that, guess what, I've pushed successfully to a GitHub page. And where it says verified will actually verify the README file. That's what it will do, right? So it's kind of interesting that GitHub allows me to publish the page, and this little check mark tells me that things are good. If there was an X here, that means that somehow your page didn't publish for one reason or another, right? So you need a check mark for it to work properly. And sometimes it takes some time for it to propagate across the internet and for it to work. So if it doesn't show any difference here, like for example, if I go here and press refresh and I don't see anything like this, right? I see something else that I did before, then it just takes time. You need to give it time for it to propagate. So I notice now, go here, guys. Go to Centennial College. I'll put this link here on chat. And so you can see that if you go there and check it out, you'll be able to see, oops, I sent it to one person. Let's send it to everybody. Let's try this again. You'll be able to see, you'll be able to go there yourself and check out this page. You should have no problem accessing it. Anywhere in the world, you can access this page now. It's not very exciting, but it's there. And this is the way I want you to put things up online for this semester. Okay, I think it's the best way to do it. You know, you're gonna learn how to do it, and it's more realistic in many ways than doing it in the server at school. Okay, so please, I will not accept your server at school. I don't have access to that anyway right now. For you to upload your pages. Okay, the only thing I have access to, and what I'm going to give you access to, is GitHub. I'll accept Microsoft Azure if you want to push yourself and learn more stuff. I will accept Google Platform. I will accept AWS. I will accept an online server. I will even accept your home server, right? If somehow you can make it available on the web, I will accept all those things. But I'm not going to accept the school server. No, no, no. It's got to be this. I got to be able to access it from anywhere in the world. The buttons are huge, unlike what I see on my screen. Okay? Yeah, because if I refresh, right, sometimes what happens is these buttons here, I've modified them. And some of the code may have not taken effect. So click me too. Let me fix those buttons, and again, if it's not what you see is what you get, that is something you get a test for. So let's try this out. So I'm going to go here, right, and let's take a look and see what went up, what didn't go up, and all that kind of stuff. So if I go back to my app.js, what I did was I made the buttons. My font size is 80 pixels, and here in my code, last day what I did was I went through it and I said, if there's more than one button and blah, 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 right? That's what I did. I'm going to get rid of this right now because this was just examples of how to do selection. I talked about this last day. We talked about how to use different methods of hooking into our code. One way of doing it was by get element by ID, where we search for the first element that matches that ID, and then we can make a reference to it and do something to it. The second way is get elements by tag name. Whenever you see the multiple elements means some kind of array or array-like structure. In this case, it's a collection of button elements that we're going to get back. So that's what this is, a collection of button elements. So that's one thing we talked about last day. And the other way to do it is by using query selector and query selector all. And I talked about that last day as well. Query selector all returns a node list. So a node list of HTML button elements. And I talked about how to iterate, so loop through, these things. And there was a couple methods that I said that worked. For now, for today, I'm going to get rid of all this stuff because it was all demo, right? And I've already made an example of this, and it's up on GitHub anyway. If you're actually going to go back to the previous commit, I'm just going to save this. And what I'm also going to do is how I like to work. Remember how I talked about how I like to work? I'm going to go press the Windows button and the left arrow, which actually automatically moves my page to the left, takes half the screen. Okay. And then I'm going to go Control backtick, and I'm going to go light server. So light server, which is going to bring up my web page. I'm also going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say Windows button to the right, and it automatically sets it up to the right side of the page. So there's no manual moving around on your own. You don't need to move it around manually. It does it automatically. Okay. So this is cool. I've got this. This is what it looks like. And now I want to push these changes to GitHub. So I can do that by making a new PowerShell down here. And I can do the same thing. I can say git add dot, right? Git commit -m, and I'll say adjusted button sizes. Git push origin master. And it'll take a few moments to populate, but what this is going to do is going to push my changes to the master branch, which is going to change the button sizes when I look at my GitHub repository online, this one. And if I refresh, it won't happen right away sometimes, but if I refresh, what it'll do is, instead of getting this size, this is what you may have seen before, it's going to, kind of scooch down to the right size. All right. So the reason why this is what you would have seen, it's going to take a second for me to populate. Take some time. And another way of testing this is test it with another browser. So if you go to Firefox, I recommend having a second browser for testing anyway, like Firefox. Firefox is a great little browser. And if I go to those pages, so if I go to github.com/Centennial College, I don't have my page cached anymore. I'm not even signed in, right, which is good. And if I go to COMP125 lesson 5, this is the page that I have. I can see my pages, and I know that this is the site, so I can go to Centennial College. Let me give you that link again. It's centennialcollege.github.io. So let's try that again. So centennialcollege.github.io / COMP125 M2020. Sorry. M2020 lesson 5, and hopefully it'll be normal size like this. So this is actually a non-cache version. You can see that it works. None of these buttons work right now, but this works. Okay, so hopefully that's a couple ways to check to see if your buttons work. And again, it takes time. See, it's still caching. It takes time to propagate, and that's why it's doing what it's doing. So GitHub Pages in a nutshell, my friends. This is something that I want you guys to use. I think it's a quick fix in getting things going, to get your pages up online. I think it's important to try and do these kind of things. All right, we also talked about a couple things here. I wanted you to make multiple pages, and let's do multiple pages here. So let's suppose I have my index.html, and my index.html right now, it just says hello world. Let's get rid of these buttons. So I don't want buttons at all on my index.html, right? And one thing I want to do is I want to incorporate my logo, right? So I want to show you how to do that too. I'm just going to make this maximized. So I'm going to press the window and up button to maximize the screen. Here we go. And when I look at the window and up button, you can see that inside of my nav bar, which is inside here, I have something called a nav bar brand, right? And I have this, which is a COMP125 thing. But I want to put my funky logo in there. So how do I do it? Best to look at the documentation on Bootstrap. I think it's going to help us to look at it. I'm going to go to getbootstrap.com. And a lot of times, if you're concerned, you can always go to documentation. And if you go to components, right on the left here, you can see that there's something called components. And if you look at, there's a badge as an example. You can create badges. There's buttons, there's breadcrumbs, all kinds of stuff. And what we want to modify is the brand. So if you go to navbar, and if you scroll down, there's going to be a section that talks about the brand. Here's the brand. And it tells you how to do it. Look, here's your navbar brand. And it actually, you can include a class for your navbar. You can also include an image, right, for your navbar that kind of looks like this, a clickable image. And we have part of it, navbar brand with an href tag. And now we just need this image tag, all right? An image tag that basically connects to where your images are. We can specify a width here. They're specifying a width of 30 and 30. I think it's a good size. And loading is equal to lazy, which is good. I think this is a good option for you. And we'll talk about lazy loading later. But this is kind of what I want. So let's just copy this and go back to my code here. And where it says my brand here, so instead of having my COMP125 in here, let's get rid of that COMP125. And inside here, place an image, but docs, doesn't make any sense because I don't have that. I do have /assets and then images and my logo.png. That I do have, okay? And I can just put into the alt text logo. All right, so that's pretty cool. I've saved that one. And if I go to, again, Windows left, and I go here, Windows right, and I go back to my COMP125. Hey, there's my brand. It's right here, right? It's pretty crazy scene, right? There it is, right there, right? So I want this brand to be up online, right? Instead of the thing that says COMP125. Let's do that. So I'm going to save this. There we go. It's going to save this. I'm going to go to Control backtick, which is going to bring up this thing. I'm just going to maximize it again so I can work with it. I'm going to clear the screen. I'm going to say git add dot, git commit -m, and I'll say added logo to brand. Git push. I can just put git push in this case because my default is origin master. It's going to just push up to GitHub into the master branch and across the origin remote. Now remember, this takes a few moments for it to propagate across all websites. It takes time. So if you don't see the effects right away, don't panic. Give it a second. Try another web browser, something else, because sometimes it takes some time, right, because of caching. All right, so again, if I was to check this out, and if I went to my GitHub pages here, so here's my GitHub pages, and if I refresh, you can see now that I have another GitHub page, and it's been uploaded. I can click on here, and I definitely have a brand. I can also go to my settings. And another way, if you don't remember where your stuff is, like I just don't, I can go all the way down here and click on this link, and now hopefully it'll show my brand. And if it doesn't, don't panic. It will eventually. See? There's my brand. It's not totally ugly, but I mean, it's ugly, right? So there it is. But it's something. Okay, cool. So now that I've got that going on, this is a great place to start thinking about my navigation scheme for my pages navigation. So you can see that I have several links. I have a link to home, a link to my products, my services, my about us, my contact us page. I want to make this 5-page site, and the best way to do it is to assume that I'm going to have these pages. So for example, I'm going to go to my index.html, put that in here, index.html page. I'm also going to put in my index.html in my home page, index.html for now. Right? And I'm going to do the same thing with my other ones. I'm going to assume that my products page is going to be called products.html. And I haven't made that yet. And I'm also going to assume that my services page is going to be called services.html. And you can see where I'm going. I'm going to call this about.html. And this will be contact.html. Cool. And you're going to see some problems with this approach later. But this, you should do this now because I'm going to copy this page like 5 times. And I don't want to go through this and do each individual link over and over again. It's just too crazy, right? So I'm going to save this page. I'm going to copy it, right? Here, copy. And I'm going to paste it a bunch of times. So I've got my second page. This is going to be my products page because I'm going to just follow the same schema. So again, I'm just going to rename the page to products. I'm going to rename this page to services. I'm going to rename this page, right, to about. I'm going to rename this page, rename to contact, right? And do I have an extra one? Products, services, about us, contact us, and index.html. I think I got too many pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I can get rid of this one. Okay, so yeah, so I've got all my pages. Here they are. About, contact, index, products, services. Excellent. But I need to make them a little bit different. And I'm going to make my about page in here, inside this part right here, where it says hello world. I'm going to say this is going to be products. Just products. Save that. So we can see, oh, that should be about, actually. About us. And in my contact, I'm going to say this is contact us. You see where I'm going with this, right? Contact us. And my index.html, let's just change this. Instead of hello world, we're going to say, call this welcome. Welcome. And products, will make it so that it is products. And services, will make this so that it says services. And now, my friends, I have a 5-page site that uses the exact same app.js page every single time. All right. And so app.js is using the same script to run everything. Okay. The same script. And let's test it. So again, I'm going to use the window button left arrow to pull it across. Here I have my hello world. And I'm going to just maximize this now. So Windows button up arrow to maximize. And I should be able to go to products. Right? Should be able to go there. Why not? Oh, this is online. Haha. I meant products, services, about us, and contact us. But there's a problem here. There's a problem here. My home page stays highlighted. And no matter where I am, wouldn't it be nice if somehow I knew which page I was on by these little breadcrumbs? Almost like a little way of doing that, right? So it tells me it does change. So you see that the website has physically changed up here, but this doesn't change, and that's a problem. Why? Because if I go to my home page, and I'm going to go just window right arrow now, and if I go back to this, so let's look at my home page for a second. So again, there's these tabs up here. You can just scroll right to your index page, okay? Or you can use here and just click on index. It's up to you, right? But if you notice, I'm going to make this maximize now. If you notice at the top of this page, right, in my navigation scheme, I have my list item as nav item active, right? And that's the truth for all pages. My nav item active is for my index.html every single time. Let's take that away. So I need to modify all these pages again. And now I want you to think about this. If I'm doing something over and over again on every single page, that gives you a sense that, hey, something's wrong with my design. Wouldn't it be better if I had a page that I could load that had all my navigation? Yes, we're going to get there this semester when we handle Ajax. But for now, we're going to have individual pages that we have a little bit of work to do, rework, right? So I'm just going to remove that nav active, this one, active, from the list item. So list item, nav act is just going to be a nav item right now. I'm going to do that for all the pages. So go up here, and I could have done this earlier, but I wanted to show it to you so you know that this is why it shows what it shows. Here's my About Us page. So About Us. So again, I'm going to get rid of this. And here's my Services page. So again, I'm doing it all. I'm just going to bring up all these things, right? Because otherwise, it's going to show my my home page as the one that's active. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So none of them are active right now. Okay, I don't even want to put active on my index.html page, and you'll see why in a second. All right, are you with me? Check marks for with me. X is for you're completely lost. I'm not trying to be facetious here. I'm hoping that you guys are following along because I'm trying to help you make your page structure correct so that you're well on your way to set up a structure for your website. And I want you can use my structure to start with because it gives you your site structure. You're going to get free marks just by using my structure. Thank you for that. I'll clear those up. So yeah, so this is a way to start for sure. We have lots of work to do here. And please, by the way, make your own symbols. Choose your own options. Don't have to use the font awesome icons that I chose. Choose other ones if you can. All right. So if I go to scripts and if I go to app.js, I want to be able to detect which page it is. Remember last day we did this. We said, you know, it'd be great if I knew my page name. Right, so we'll say that the title of the page is equal to what? Document.title, right? So if I was going to print out this thing, this is working basically across every page. Remember, this app.js is one JavaScript file that's connected to every single page here, right? So be careful, right? And I want a console out, so I want to do a console.log, right? And I want to say something like title, and let's print out the title. Right, so I'm going to come back to this in a second. I want to embed the title, and one of the things I want to show you is this idea of template strings. So instead of doing it the old way, that's the old way of doing it, we can use template strings. And template strings start off with the backtick character. The backtick character is a character on the keyboard that can be found underneath your escape key. It's in the same key that your tilde, so it looks like this, backtick. It does not look like this. That's different. That's the apostrophe, right? Or single quote. Sorry, single quote. And it doesn't look like this. That's double quotes. Okay, so double quotes, no. Single quotes, no. But backtick, which is the key underneath your escape key on your keyboard, this one, that's the one that's a template string. And what you can do with template strings is an amazing amount of stuff. So let's put on my template string, I want to use the curly braces. I think it's / curly brace, and I want to when I use this, I want to inject my title. Right now, it's either backslash or it could be $. Let's try $. Yeah, it's $. Title, and that'll do is it'll take the title and put it out there. So the title of the page is title, whatever the title is, right? And I'm using backtick characters for me to get this going. I'm doing a string interpolation by injecting this string right here inside of my template string. This is huge. It's really important to do this. All right. Okay, once I've done this, and if I go back to my pages, so again, I'm going to go left, so window left. I'm going to open up this thing. So I'm going to go to my inspector here on the bottom of my page, my bottom of my browser, and go to my console. And it should say the title of the page is, oh man, that's not good. It says COMP125, M2020, lesson 5. This is no good, right? I want to change it. I want to change my title, right? The title that comes up here, right? Depending on the page. And the easiest way to do that is to change it here, right? Unfortunately. So there's some changes we have to make, guys. There's also ways of doing it with code. Oops. Let's try that again. Oops. I want to make it so that it takes up my entire page. So you could definitely do code here to modify the title based on your, with some code, you can switch based on the URL. But be careful, then you'd have to parse the URL and a bunch of other stuff, string manipulation. Don't want to go there right now. We can do that later. For now, we're going to say that this is my home page. So for my index.html, let's click on index.html. We can change this to home. Right? And we can go to products. Let's save that. And we can go to products and we can look at products. And contact. We can change that to contact. Again, this is a simplified way of doing it for now. We're going to modify this and we're going to build on this as we go forward. About services. I'm actually literally changing the title. Services. And that should do it. So services, about, contact, products, and index. All right, that's what I have. So index is home. Yay. Cool. Now I'm going to do the window left. And notice that it says the title of the page is home. Okay, cool. So if I go to products, the title of the page is products. And if I go to about us, the title of the page is about. Okay, so it actually detects the title of the page. And if I know something unique about the page, I can start doing unique things to that page. Unique things to that page. Like, for example, I can change the list item, right? The list item of each of these things, right? So let's go back to that. Sorry. Let's go back to that and think about the list items now. My list item, right? I'm going to query this thing. I'm going to query this thing. And I want to see each of these list items change. I want to add a class to each of these list items, right? Each of these list items, depending on which page I'm at. So if I'm at the first page, my index.html, I want to somehow hook into this list item, right? This that has a class of nav item, and that has an anchor tag of nav link with an href of index.html, right? I'm looking for this information, and once I know that this information matches, I can modify the class in my list item to include active. This one. Okay? So that's what I want to do, and I want to do that dynamically. Okay? So how do I do this? This is a bit of a change, but it's going to be a learning for us. Okay? So we want to break this down into chunks, right? And I want to start off with some kind of switch statement. I'm going to keep this here for now. You can use a switch statement inside of JavaScript. If I select this one, not this one, this one in VS Code, it starts structuring my switch statement for me, like this. Okay? I'll undo that again. So again, I just type switch, and then I choose the second one, the second option, and press tab. And then I get this. This is my switch case structure that I can use. I'm going to start reordering it now. So the key is the title. So that's the way I'm going to switch. I'm going to say, hey, depending on the title, whatever the title is, we know the title in this case is home or products or about, whatever, I can put that value in here. So the first one is home, break. I do something when I do home. Then there's going to be another one, case, products, break, case, about. I'm not putting it in any specific order. Break, contact. I feel like a robot. Break. And services. No particular order. Okay, just randomly put some stuff down. And there's a default. Default should always be there. What default does is if it doesn't, it's not one of these, it'll do this, right? So if I have some other page in the future. All right, so depending on the page, right, I think that's the first thing I want to do. Depending on the page, I'm going to look at different pieces, right? Definitely I could do this, right? So I could do a switch case, and if I had something to hook into, for example, if I went to a li with a ID of, well, I don't have to even do that. If I could do something like, I could define something like my document.getElement by ID, whatever, and then add a class to that attribute. That would be the easiest thing that I can do. However, my index.html and my products and contact and about and services don't have that. I don't have an ID for any of these things. Although it would be nice if my list item had an ID of home, products, services, blah, blah, whatever. But what if it didn't? Like this. Okay, so that would be a problem, right? So yes, so this structure would be great if I had IDs for each one of these things. However, I do not. I don't have IDs. Okay. So this structure is nice if I had IDs. So I would say nice if each li had ID, an ID attribute. But I don't. Right? But they don't. Right? They don't have that. It'd be nice because then I could just like pick each ID and then obviously I can go here and modify each page. But no, I don't have that. So this is good, but this is no good. Right? So let's just kill this. We're going to come back to this structure later on. All right? So what's another way to do it? I want to be able to see a list item, right? And I can use query selector all to do this, right? So I can say that, okay, let us make a temporary variable for now. Actually, we'll call it the target. Let's call the target nav or target li. Call it whatever you like. Okay, I'm just calling target list item, right? The target list item is going to be, I'm going to say document dot query selector. Okay, so I want to look at the query selector that matches a specific element that meets CSS requirements. I'm looking at like just the same way I would look at CSS. So just like query selector all, right? I can do the same thing with query selector all, but I would hit multiple items, right? Here I only want to do one item, right? One item. So I want to select an item that has a list item. So let's take a look at index.html, and I'm going to make this so it becomes side by side here. So I'm going to break the screen into two parts, right? And the other side is going to be my JavaScript, right? So we can see what we have here. Okay, so a list item, targeting only list items with an item, a class of nav item. Inside the list item, there's an anchor tag, right? And the anchor tag contains an href tag of index.html. Right? So that's interesting. So list item with an anchor tag. Let's see if we can just set list item with an anchor tag, right? That's how kind of CSS works. And let's see what I get back. Just if I just did this. Just a list item with an anchor tag. Let's do a console log of this. So target li. And what do I get back? I'm just going to use my window left. and it says that I get this, the first one, right? In fact, what it does is it targets this thing right here. That is the target, right? That is the target. So this is one approach, but then I'm going to get this, a nav item, nav link. And if I was to change this thing, right? If I was to change this thing completely, so let's go back to, oops, not that. Keep doing that. Not that. I want to do that, but not there, but up here and that. Oh, there you go. So this actually returns the anchor tag. That's what this returns. So it returns an element and it returns the anchor tag, right? Notice I did that and it showed me the anchor tag that it was returning. So this is good, right? But I don't want this. I want the parent tag of this. And I want to specifically look at the href tag to compare what it is. All right? So that's the target li, right? And I want to get a list of all of them. So query selector all of list items with anchor tags, right? This one, all right? So if I did this, query selector all, now you can see now I get a node list of all the items, right? This is a way of doing it. And it gives me anchor tags. Each of these is an anchor tag, yeah? Right? So what if I want to look at the parent node? So I go to, I want to look at, so this list item, I want to see the parent node, right, for this item, right? So for each one of these things. So remember what I can do is I can use a for loop of some kind to go through each of the list items. So target, instead of target li now, let's put target list items, or let's just put, just rename this thing. And by the way, if you ever want to rename something here in Visual Studio Code, you can right click and just go refactor, and rename is what I really meant to do. Where is that? Rename symbol, there it is. And you can rename it to something like nav list items. So nav list items, LIs, nav list items. I could also print that out, but nav LIs makes sense to me, right? So nav LIs, and I want to, remember the looping structure we used before? We could use a for loop. I could use a for loop and loop through all of them. I could use a for in loop and search through all of them as well. And I think the for in loop might do me well here. So for in, so for, is it for in or for of? Let's see, for of. For of is the one we want to use. The for of loop, and in the for of loop I want to say const list item li of nav li's. So for every list item of nav list items, I want to say that, let's do a console log now of that. Okay, so let's get rid of this as I build up my JavaScript stuff. And if you notice now, if I go to console, each list item now is listed. Yay, this is good. This is really good. All right. So cool. And now I want to check to see if this thing has an attribute, right? Does this anchor tag, that's what this is, have an attribute of href? We know it should, because all anchor tags will, right? That's the list item target. In fact, this is not list items. It's actually nav. This one is the anchor tag still, right? So I'm looking at this particular anchor for each of the items, right? And what I could do is I can modify, by the way, one thing to also note about before I go on, if I modify the, let me just make this big again. If I modify, instead of modifying the list item, nav item, if I go to nav link and I put active here instead, so here instead of here, right? I'm just going to show you that, what happens instead, just by accident if you did that. And if I went to here, nothing, right? It doesn't really do anything. I can't really do much with that nav item. So if I modify one thing, yeah, no. right? It doesn't show up as highlighted in any way, right? I'm just putting that out there. So if some of you thought, well, what if I put active here? Yeah, no. But if I put active somehow here, this is what I want to do. I want to access the item above it. Well, then if I go back, you can see, well, I don't really can't. Let me just make sure that this is big so we can see, make sure it's correct, right? So yeah, because I'm not so notice that that one is the home page. Let me go back to do that again. So if I take this away, so undo, and redo, and go back to this one, right? And then maximize the page. Yeah, that works too, is what I'm trying to say. So that's another way of doing it. Look at that one. That is active, right? And so this active thing works whether it's on the list item or on the anchor tag. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool, man. So that means I can save myself a step, right? Because the class works like that totally, and it works okay. So let's do that instead. So this is good. I want to do this, but I want to do this with code, and it depends on if I have an href with a value of index.html. So depending on the href, right, and if it matches my home, right, if it matches, right, somehow, and this is where I can put in my switch case again. My switch case can go nicely in here, right, because it'd be nice if I had a way of hooking into it. And here, it's kind of done that, right? It says, and then I can change this from let nav allies to the anchor tag that I'm looking at. This is just using like CSS here, right? CSS, li, anchor, right? Here's another question. Is there a way of highlighting or getting right to this href tag? Well, there isn't really. I've already navigated to the spot I want. So this is good enough. But let's just change this again one more time. So we'll change this, rename this one to nav, instead of nav anchors. So we'll call this nav anchors, which is a little bit better. So navigation anchors. So for every anchor, I could have probably renamed it, of navigation anchors, I want to look at that anchor. And depending on what the anchor is, let's print out the href. So, okay, I want to get an attribute. So I can say that anchor dot, and notice it has a bunch of options. One of them is get attribute. So anchor dot get attribute, and then I can get the attribute with a qualified name of href. Okay, that's the qualified name. I want to get that attribute, and I want to print it out to the console. Let's do that next. Index, products, services, about, contact. See that? Guys, this is awesome, right? This is pretty awesome, okay? So once I have this, I can start comparing everything other than my my home page has the same names: products, services, about, and contact.html. And we also have each of these items, right, that I'm returning, these attributes, right? My title, as an example, is actually my title, which is, yay, that's good. Are you guys with me? That was weird. I lost you for a second. All right. Yeah, so the title right now is, I haven't modified the title, right? The title is as it is. But what I can do with the string is, if I want to make a string lowercase, so let's say, for example, I said, I want to make this title, dot to lowercase. So I want to kind of make this title lowercase. And if I did that, you can see now that the title is home, lowercase home. This is good. This is really good, right? Now, for most of them, other than the index.html page, right? Other than the index.html page, I have a map of what I want to look at, right? So I can go through for each one, and I can match the title, right, to my anchor, right? So for each one, if the title, and if I want to strip or split the this thing, so let's say, for example, I want to get my attributes, and instead of just printing out the anchor attribute, right, let's just call this thing anchor. That's what it is, this anchor. But I want to make the anchor string, let's say anchor string is equal to the anchor, but I want to split. All right, so I want to split this thing because anchor is just a string, right? So I want to be able to split this thing into different pieces, and I want to search or slice, right? That's what I want to do. I want to slice this thing into different pieces. So the anchor string itself is what I want. And if you notice, if I hover over this thing, the anchor is an element, right? And what I want to do is the anchor string is equal to the anchor dot get attribute, right? And I want to slice this thing or split this thing, because if I did this get attribute, then this would be a string. That's what this thing would be. Anchor string would be a string, right? So first I get the string. I'm gonna just print out anchor string instead. I'm gonna run out of time here if I don't continue quicker. I'm so sorry, guys. So again, I'm just using this. I'm assigning it a value, so you can see that it's the same thing. Get attribute. It says, how about if I do it right, like this? That's why I was erroring out. So anchor, this one, dot get attribute, and I want to look at the href attribute. So you can see now that gives me all these again. And if I hover over this, it's a string. And now that I can do this, let me just get rid of this thing. I don't need that anymore, right? Then what I can do is I can say that I want to split, right? Split the string. And notice it says, the way it's split is I have a splitter, whatever that splitter is, with a limit. So an object that can be split a string, and it says a string that identifies a character or characters used in separating the string. If omitted, a single element array containing the entire string is returned. So the separator is what I want to put in here as a string. What's my separator? Dot. So let's put in my separator. And now what do I get instead? I've got these things. I get two things, right? Index and HTML, and it returns two strings, right? So that's not quite what I want. Okay, how about another thing? So that's what split does. Substring, it says from to length, right? So from 0, right, as an example, to the string length, so which is the anchor string dot length. So anchor string dot length, that's what I want. And then minus HTML period, -5, right? Let's see what that does for me. And it might not work either, because it says I can't answer anchor string, I can't access before initialization. I haven't initialized it, and I'm trying to do everything at once. Well, that's no problem, because I can break this down into 2 lines. So I can say anchor string equals to anchor string dot substring of anchor string dot length -5. And now you can see that I got all these. So I've removed .html. That's what I'm doing. I'm going from the 0, from the beginning of the string, because remember the string's made up of characters, from the first or 0th character all the way. I'm removing the last 5 elements of the string, which is always HTML, right? .html. 5 characters I'm removing. So that's my end, right? And I go from the 0 to that point, and that is the new string. That's what I'm doing. Cool. So now if that's the string I'm going to compare with the title. All right. So if I say if title is exactly equal to anchor string, right, then let's do a console log and we'll just say true. So we'll go through it and it says home, we're not true because home and index don't match. But if I go to products, then you can see that products becomes true. That is, we detected products. Okay, let's see if I can detect services, right? Services, I can detect about, there we go, and I can detect contact us. There we go. So I detected all those things. So the only one I can't detect is the home page, right? So we can do a couple things. We can make an assumption. We can say that, well, if I can't detect you, then this item, as an example, right, is the one that we have. So if, for example, we can check two things. We can say that if my title, right, if my title is equal to home, right, if that's the one, then we just take whatever anchor, the first anchor that we get to, because that's the first one in our list. It's kind of a cheat. The first item in our list in our index page. We could do that. If title is equal to, as an example, to home, we can do that. And we can say our anchor string, right? If our anchor string is equal to, exactly equal to index, so those two things we can check for. So this is the first check we would do for the one case. This is the first case. If this is true, then we want to take our anchor and we want to change our, I want to set the class. So it's almost, I want to put class name. Class name is the attribute that I want to change. So class name. You can also do, by the way, set. There's different things you can do. There's different sets, but class name, if you look at class name itself, it's a property. And we can say that the class name is equal to nav item, if I'm not wrong. Let me just check index.html for a second. Nav link active. Okay, that's what we want to put in there. So nav dash link space active. Nav dash link space active, right? So that is the one I want to access only if it's this. Nav link is active, right? So that's interesting. So this would work for the first one, but what about for the rest, right? So if the title matches, so this is one of them, and if the title matches, I also want to do this, right? So I can say if this is true, right? Or if my title is exactly equal to my anchor string, right? If one of those conditions is true, let's just make this the whole thing, right? Then I want to put my anchor.class name is equal to nav link active, and I can get rid of this. And let's see now if that works. So contact us, yay. About us, yay. Services, yay. Products, yay. Home, yay. We did it. Okay, so that is kind of the long form way of modifying stuff. And what I've shown you here is exactly the power that we have of JavaScript. Now, even if we don't know all this stuff that we did, I didn't add anything. I just modified what we had, and I modified it by targeting. First, we target. That's the first thing we do. So we say, hey, let's find it, and we found it with query selector all. That was the way we did it. We found all of them. Now I don't need to print all of them out here in the console. Okay, I don't need to print any of them anymore. That was my this was my check. That was my kind of my my debug, right? I can even not even show this part anymore, the title, although I will. All right. So now when I go back, you can see that it doesn't show anything. The title page is home, and if I maximize this page for a second, so here's my maximize page, right? Then I can clearly see that the it takes a second, but each of the the links work. As soon as I land on that page, then I get to that appropriate link. Okay, because what it does is JavaScript searches for it and changes the class so that it highlights that thing. And I'm choosing a class that's built into Bootstrap. Who's with me? Check mark for with me, X for not. Some people are with me. And I wish there was another one that was like, I don't know, something weird, right? But yeah, so some people got it, right? And I know that not all of you are going to be able to eat this or consume this, the thing that I've given you already. And I know that this is the case because, you know what? It's tough. When you first look at this structure right here, look, in a few lines of code with no jQuery, with nothing extra, I've done a couple things. So let me just go over this one more time. I know I'm going to run over just by a few minutes, but I want to go over this with you. And then hopefully you guys will be cool. I'm just going to maximize this page so you can see it. So the first thing I did was, hey, let's get the title. I sent the title to lowercase because we know my titles in each of these things is uppercase. The first character is uppercase. So, kind of like the title case, if you will, right? That's the first thing I did. So I lowered it back to normal, right? Next, I want to print it out to compare it. So this is my title. So I did that. Next, I want to do a query, and this is a very similar to a CSS query to target the element that I want. In this case, I'm targeting the anchor tag because I know that I can modify not just the list item, but also the anchor tag to add a class. Okay, that's what I want to do. Okay, I want to modify the class on the anchor tag, this anchor tag right here, right? And there's a class associated with it from Bootstrap that I've inherited, right? Nav link. I want to add active to nav link, right? Or actually what I'm really doing is I'm replacing the entire value of the class, this part right here. That's what I really want to do with my own. I'm using JavaScript for that. This is a good case for that, okay? So again, I target. I've got my target. It's a node list of elements. Now I'm going to step through each of the elements and I'm going to start my comparison. First, I want to say that my anchor string, because I'm looking for an anchor, the A tag, A element, the anchor element, I want to look for that anchor and I want to get the href value of that anchor. The href is the link that this anchor goes to, index.html, products.html, services.html, right? And then I want to change the anchor string that I get by substringing. I want to use the substring, or I want to take the string and strip out the last 5 characters, which is what this does. This strips out the last 5 characters of the string, right? Now I have an anchor string that only has index or products or services, which matches the way I have my title. My title and my anchor string now are in the same case, and chances are might match. I have a single case where my title and my anchor string won't match. That's when with my home and index, they both have to be the same. And if it's not this, then I check for the title, if the title matches the anchor string. If this is true, then I look at the anchor inside of my for loop. That particular object that I'm looking in this for each loop, I change the class name property to my new one, right, which one I want. So it literally overwrites that class name property. And once I've done that, I've won. I've done everything I need to do. And that's how an example of how JavaScript can work in a few simple lines. Okay? Could I have broken this out even more? Or could I have done it all in one? Believe me, you can. You can do it in one big line of code. And then that's where people hate JavaScript, because they're like, wait, it's in one big line of code. How the heck has he done this? Because JavaScript is flexible. And so flexible, like I talked about before, that you can hang yourself with it too, right? And you don't want that. You'll break your code. So we talked about a couple things today that are different. One of them is this idea of a template string right here, template string, which you may have learned already. And this is a great way to inject JavaScript in terms of strings on a page, right? Because I want to write my template string, and then I want to replace or add text content, if you will, through this. So let's do one more thing before we go for the day. I know I'm running over time. Please bear with me because I want to help you with your assignment. I know you might have other things to do after this, but please give me one more second here. So now that I've got this, right, I want to inject into the page something, right? So if you look in my index.html, I have this div with a class of jumbotron, and I want to inject a paragraph tag that says the name of my page, as an example, in each one of these paragraph tags in the jumbotron. Okay, so I'm going to inject this thing. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, first of all, I need to add an element. So append child is what it's called, right? So, and this is actually in your PowerPoint. Okay, so again, I'm going to go here, and what I want to do is now, depending on the page that I'm at, I want to take this title. That's what I want to do, and append it onto that page. So I'm not done yet. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom of this function right here. Just going to make it so that's easily recognizable. And I'm going to say that I want to append child. So I'm going to say document. First of all, I want to target my my jumbotron. So I'm going to say let jumbotron equal to document dot. I want to, again, think about what that jumbotron is, a class, right? I can get element by class name. Get elements by class name. I know it's called jumbotron, but it's going to return multiple elements. So I'm going to go with the first one, the 0th element. So jumbotron is going to be the first element that matches, that has a class name of jumbotron. So this is what this is, okay? And now I can just say append child. So jumbotron dot append child. I want to append a new node. Remember we talked about the hierarchy. A new node. I want to append child something. But I don't have something to, I have to create the node in order for me to append it, because I'm creating almost like my own element. So I can say my new element, let's say for example, new paragraph is equal to document dot create element, and I want to make a new element that is a paragraph tag. Okay, so document dot create element paragraph, that's the new paragraph. It's empty, right? And I want to inject paragraph dot, so again, new paragraph dot the text content. I want to inject the name of the page, which is the document title, or just title. I've cleaned it up, so it's going to have that one thing. So now, first I hook into it. So step one, hook into the spot on the page, right? And when I say spot, I mean the element. Step two, sorry, I know people are leaving. Step two, create the new element, create a new element, right? Step three, configure the new element, which is what I'm doing, where I take the text content of the new element and I configure it. And then step four, attach the new element. Okay? Attach new element. So then I just take this new paragraph and put it on. Whew. 4 steps to doing it in this case. Okay, let's see if that works. I'll go back and blah, services. And depending on what I'm clicking on, products. And then this is something that I've injected. This is exactly what I'm kind of talking about from a, for your assignment, where I can inject stuff by creating an element. These are the 4 steps. We're going to go over this again on Monday, but I'm going to go through it with you and help you do it. So for now, what I asked you to do, I'm going to put this up on GitHub. So while I'm talking, what I'd ask you to do for Monday is start your stuff. Start your assignment. And I'll say added this idea of a link. So nav link highlighting. Right, that's what I did. Okay, and then git push. Okay, that pushes everything. You have all my code now on GitHub in a second. There we go. And the great thing about this, and in a few seconds from now, you should be able to have everything you need. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate you guys sticking around for so long that you did. For the people who couldn't stick around and we're still watching this video later on, thanks again. But start working on your assignment. That's what I'm gonna tell you. And try to put some stuff up so when we get together on Monday, we can have a good conversation. I want to help you to get everything going so that your assignment number 1 is super successful. Guys, thank you so much. I'm going to stop streaming right now, and I'll see you next week. I'll also stick around for questions if you have time.